Laundry chute.
I passed.
I have one here.
Okay.
Even though I don't need it, because I'm going to.
Okay.
I didn't clip it because
No, it's okay.
Okay.
I forgot to do it.
Check it.
All right. So we were talking about. Do you know what a chute is?
No.
You don't have these
No.
things in houses in Italy, but in houses in Canada, often do we have them. You have them in hotels. You grab your clothes and you open a little door
Yeah.
and you throw the clothes and they go directly into a basket
Okay.
underneath the house where you have your laundry room. I don't even know how you would call that in Italy because you don't really have them.
No.
Where I'm from,
Nei film
you
lo
really
chiamano in
have.
qualche modo. Nei film lo chiamano in qualche modo.
Yeah, I don't know. È un condotto dove si buttano i vestiti alla right.
Condotto.
They're typical in houses.
In some big town in Italy, there is a waste chute.
Where you throw
In
them.
very ancient, not very ancient, in some old
Houses.
palaces.
Yeah.
No, condominium. Yeah. And there was a chute and all the
Garbage will go
the
there.
garbage, yes.
Yeah, we do it with the laundry. Also because sometimes in condominiums there's the cleaning service. So the cleaning service, your chute ends up in your box and they clean your clothes. Hotels do it in America and Canada.
I would love it.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. You just throw it away.
Especially
It's
now.
the best. You don't have to have your clothes in your room when they're dirty. You already throw them in the basket downstairs.
Okay.
They're
My
pretty cool.
children throw it on the floor.
Children are taught to throw it in the laundry chute. Yeah, if you had it. I understand why it's not typical here, but yeah, it's a typical thing there for some reason. I do not know if it's a thing that comes from England or not. But I had one in my house. It was great. It was fantastic. You would throw all kinds of shit down and see if it arrived. As a child, I loved it. Then I came here, no more laundry chutes. Yeah.
All the other apartments
Have their own. Everybody has
so
a basket.
there
Yeah.
was a specific chute for each apartment.
Sure.
Okay.
So you have the tube that goes down and there's a
Okay.
yellow basket. I remember
Okay.
in my apartment building with my mom and dad. There was a basket, it had your
Yeah,
number
yeah,
on it.
yeah. Okay, but not mixing all.
No,
Okay.
no. Otherwise it would be
No,
impossible.
no, I was thinking of, because no, the waste chute it was
Universal,
one,
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the problem with the waste chutes, I remember in Toronto, is that it's difficult to keep them clean.
Yeah.
That's the
I think
thing.
of the smell.
They would smell like shit, yeah, but the laundry chutes are a big thing over there. So you're on the 64th floor and you got to bring down your laundry. Fuck that. You throw it in the laundry chute and it goes all the way down.
But like children never go into
They're
the.
safe. Well, we'll see. We shall see.
Okay.
We were talking about something in your teenagehood, but have you kept something? Avete visto, ho connesso dalla lezione precedente. I'm really trying in this course. I'm really trying. Have you ever kept something from your childhood? Why and what is it? From your childhood. So teenagehood, adolescence as you call it, is from 12 to 19. Going back even further, something from, I can answer that question very easily. No. Because I have nothing, because we moved and I left all my stuff there. I had no idea. So did you, no, I know. That's just the life I have lived. Yes or no?
Yes.
No.
Say what?
My teddy bear.
Teddy bear. You still have it?
Yeah. But
You have a middle-aged teddy bear? Sorry, I didn't mean to be mean, but mathematical question.
I kept it, but my daughter is using it. I mean, she has it
in her bedroom.
Cool.
Is it something you're
I
going to sacrifice?
also kept my Cicciobello, but she destroyed it when she was
Child.
I mean, I kept it perfectly.
Yes.
It was as
perfect.
A new one.
Yeah.
And you know, but yeah. But the teddy bear is still, and of
L-
course he will move with us. To
Yeah,
the
that's what I
house.
was asking. Are you going to sacrifice it?
No.
No, is the answer. Short answer, no. Cool. Great. Does it still have the same smell to you?
Oh. No, I don't remember.
Mm. No, in a sense, when you put it to your nose, does it always smell the same? Do you have that sensation or not? Yeah.
Actually, I don't use it.
You don't put it
Well, it
on.
may happen that it crosses your path. No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mm. No, I'm asking because when I went to Canada recently, I went to see my where I grew up. I knocked on the door. I said, "Can I come in?"
No.
Because I used to live here. And the guy was nice. He said, "Sure, come in." And I walked around with my daughter there, and the smell, it was there. It was 40 years later. It smelled, and I told the guy, it smells the same. He laughed, and I left, and that was it. But it was cool. It was such a cool thing. Yeah. My daughter didn't like it, but it was cool. Yeah. It's small, shitty. Yeah. That's where we live. What about you, Sarah?
I
Childhood.
Yep.
So from 5 to 10, 11.
I have kept my first diary,
Mm-hmm.
which is very
Like
sweet.
elementary school?
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Not like my personal diary,
Oh, I
not
see.
the school one.
Mm.
Which I mean, it's something I have kept doing in my like I still have a diary, even though I've never been much um, regular in writing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but it's something I like doing, and it happened like almost randomly because it was a birthday party of mine. I can't remember, and one of my friends gifted me with this diary, which had a little lock. I said, "Wow,
Cool.
what's this?"
Yes.
I knew about diaries, but I never had one, and so I started writing childish stuff, obviously, and and I kept it because of what's written in there, because it's fun thinking of me as a child, but also it's like the way everything happened, the relationship with my thoughts written down. So I decided to keep it. What else? Maybe some notes I got from some friends. My Barbie.
You only
I
have one?
loved it. Yeah, it's really like its hair is very horrible. I don't know why I watched it once and I ruined it completely.
Oh, really? Eh?
Yes, it was horrible.
And lost the shine.
Yes, I hated her because she had this very um, um, damaged hair, but actually it's my favorite because it was the first one. So
so cool.
yes, and she acted all the roles. Like once she was the woman, sometimes it was the male because I needed a male Barbie, so she was the male and everything. Like any monster, ghosts, she always had the worst roles. But actually, it was the ones I was more attached to.
Yeah. It was your go-to, come aggettivo vuol dire quello più usato, your go-to toy. For example, if you have a go-to friend, è l'amico, il primo amico, amica che chiami.
Like we go to restaurant.
Your go-to restaurant è il tuo ristorante che vai sempre. Go-to, aggettivo, non c'entra niente il verbo. It's your go-to whatever. Yeah. Your go-to school is the school with your name, obviously. I hope. All right. What's a funny or dangerous thing you did as a child without your parents knowing, Sarah? As a child, obviously.
Well, once I threw myself down from the balcony of the house, hanging on an umbrella.
Like Mary,
like
Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins.
The Mary Poppins of Biancada.
And
Yes.
after the suggestion of my older brother.
Of course.
5 years older. Okay.
Yes.
And
yes.
he told me, you try because you're the less heavier, you're the lighter one.
Sure, sure.
So you try first, and then I can try. And yes, the umbrella like got upside down. Like fortunately, like 3 or 2 meters from the ground.
So it wasn't a huge
hurt
jump.
myself. Yes.
Even though, as a
But I was
child,
scared.
it may have seemed like you were jumping from Niagara
Yeah.
Falls. Yeah. Yeah, I see. And did you get hurt?
No, I didn't.
You fell on your feet.
Actually, I got very scared because my mother caught me in the meanwhile.
In the full flight.
And she screamed like crazy. Why you
Poor mom. Yes.
Yeah.
Who got the worst of it, you or your brother?
My brother.
Yes, because
he was
you
the
told
older
him.
one. Yeah, he was supposed to be like wiser.
Wiser and protecting you.
Yeah.
But he wasn't.
No.
Yes.
Obviously.
Is he
like
older?
maybe he knew I could get
5 years
hurt,
older.
but-
Yes.
5 years older.
Yeah, I was like 6, 7, so he was trying.
Ah.
Yes.
6 or 7 jumping off the balcony of the house. Yeah.
Yes.
On hard cement or on the grass?
Cement.
Yeah.
Yes, because it was the higher side of the terrace.
Of the house. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
They made me do anything really dangerous stuff. And I was the younger one, the only
Girl.
and so I wanted to be accepted, so I did anything.
You would do anything.
Yeah.
Because your brother probably had a posse.
Uh,
Sapete cos'è un posse? P-O-S-S-Y. P-O-S-S-E. A posse è un gruppo di gente che andava a cavallo, che andava nel Far West, a posse.
Oh.
Quindi la tua compagnia di briganti is a posse. Yeah.
Yeah.
So did your brother have a posse and you were trying to be accepted by the posse?
Yes.
For sure.
And they took advantage of me. Obviously.
Of course, that's what boys do. Yeah, of
It
course.
was fine. I'm happy I had the childhood between boys because I did this kind of things. For example, I hated when I spent too much time with my girlfriends because they ended up always doing girls things, and I
Girly
got,
stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
I got bored a lot. We didn't do anything.
Come si dice
For
maschiaccio in
chatting.
inglese?
Tomboy.
Tomboy, sì. Il maschietto Tom è una ragazza che... Maschiaccio, sì. Maschiaccio, tomboy.
Yeah.
So you were a bit of a tomboy? Yeah, cool.
I hated skirts and because my mother made me put skirts on and I put a trouser under under the skirt because everybody is going to see my underwear, so
So you had to put the pants on there, yeah. Poor Sarah, yeah.
Yep.
Some moms used to be like that. Yeah.
Now
All right.
she gave up.
Then she gave up.
She asked me just like for special days like weddings or anything, but I
Yeah.
didn't.
My mom was obsessed with a shirt and tie and a jacket. In fact, I never wear it. She's just obsessive. Oh my god. What's a funny or dangerous thing that you did as a child, my dear Nikki? Funny or dangerous, one or the other.
My memory is fading away, so it's very difficult for me to remember.
It's a strange
something.
thing, eh?
Yeah.
When it happens?
I need a hint, and then
A trigger.
maybe a trigger, and then maybe the memories came back. But maybe in 1 hour, my mind is full of memories. I remember that I was a tomboy. I prefer to play with
Boys.
than girls. So for sure, I did, I think, many things. Not very dangerous because I wasn't so.
Adventurous?
Yeah, adventures. maybe.
Bold. Bold vuol dire senza paura, sì, coraggioso. Right.
we played a lot, especially when I had the chance, the opportunity to get to my auntie's home. That was at that time in the countryside, and now is Santa Bona, so it's very near to the. At that time, for me, that who I lived near the Put, so very close to the downtown, and I hadn't the opportunity to enjoy the no, a big room where run plays, and so when I got the chance to go there were also a couple of cousins, and we and my auntie was very permissive. Okay, so we could do anything we wanted, and from building capanne and playing rugby, and
Santa was it very populated at the time? It wasn't very populated?
what?
It wasn't very populated, Santa Bona?
No.
But it's a block of cement now.
Yeah.
Wow.
There were mainly, you already told me how to say that, case popolari.
Popular houses.
Popular, yeah. My mom is
Yeah.
born there.
She was born there, your mom?
Yes, my father says that he was scared of going to her house.
Yes, because she lived in Vieronchese.
Yes.
I was
okay.
far,
Outer.
yeah,
Okay.
more.
Yeah, because Santa Bona is big.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was, let me say, now there is the Supermercato Sole and
Okay.
So there
No,
wasn't
it's
the
incredible.
supermarket,
Really?
no.
Oh yes.
But now there's the rugby stadium there and all that kind of.
The
That's
rugby
Monico.
stadium, I think, but it's not Santa Bona
It's
there.
Monico.
Yeah, more Monigo, yeah. That's but there's
and
all those big buildings there.
Yeah, but once
Yeah.
it wasn't like that.
And we could eat and drink whatever we
wanted. Yeah.
So we drank liters of cedrata, and we had all the lips colored by yellow colored at the end of the day.
So it was a
No chemicals.
No. Now you look for all the the colorants, and you find
whatever strange
whatever.
thing. Yeah, it's a miracle we're still alive.
Yeah.
Children born in the 70s or 60s.
Yeah,
it's a
we
miracle.
Survived to.
It's a miracle we're still alive.
Yeah.
I remember what I remember the most is at the time was the buses. When a bus accelerated, Black Death came out of the pipe of the bus, and we're just breathing it like it was nothing. And still, we're here, pretty healthy. All right, let's skip the last question because it's time to listen to a story. Okay? So I'm going to play the audio of this story, and good. Also because I think we've already talked about point 3 in a way or another. So this is the Laundry Chute, and now we're going to listen to the audio. And hold on just a second.
Spring comes later.
And this time I did a better job with a word by word. So I took some time today.
But isn't like ChatGPT able to transcribe?
Not really.
No?
I mean, you have to download some
because
particular.
I tried once uploading a file, but it told me it couldn't because it needed.
It can, but you have to load some extensions to your computer.
Right.
And I have no patience.
And
yes,
you have
I
to
gave
pay
up.
to have the
Yes.
I have the ChatGPT Pro, yes, but it still needs some
No,
extensions.
okay, but the free version
Doesn't do it.
doesn't.
Yeah.
Now, to say the truth, I've been doing this transcription thing for many years as part of my job. So sometimes somebody has a conference and they ask for the translation. I'm pretty I'm very fast at doing it. Yeah.
No, yeah,
Sometimes I
but-
don't have time. Sometimes you find a story online, which is the mistake I made last week. That I copy and pasted the story, but the audio was different. So sometimes we
Yeah,
missed.
but
Yeah.
because there are
fine.
several different
There's
versions.
several different versions. I think he was kind of drunk sometimes when he told the story. So maybe the stories were interpreted a little bit, but still, this is a good one. It's a double story actually. So let's have a listen. And let me make sure that the audio is on. The OBS, I have to make sure I'll do the desktop on. Okay, yes, it should be fine. All right.
Highlands than it does to other parts of this country. It came this year to Dave's hometown, the village of Big Narrows, as it always comes, on the sudden cry of a crow flapping over the hill behind the Macaulay's farm. The sound of the crow brought old man Macaulay sprinting out of the barn, as sure a sign of spring as anything.
Let's remember that in Canada, especially in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, winter is a long and sad affair. I always remember that when spring came to Toronto, you would, one day to the next, see people in shorts walking in the streets. And you knew it was springtime, and it was a long time, because from November until May, of a lot of cold. It's beautiful when it comes. So yeah, this is what it is.
I remember the merchandise, I think in Toronto, where it was written, like, I'm sorry for the things I did when it was winter.
It's long. It's long. So these people in Nova Scotia, where Dave is from, they hear the crow, il corvo che è arrivato dalla migrazione. So they know it's spring. Voi avete corvi tutto l'anno.
Infatti stavo dicendo.
Yeah.
He stood in his muddy farmyard, squinting into the pale sun, his dog beside him, tail wagging, head cocked, staring into the sky too. Overnight, the snow on all the hills turned granular and little rivers began appearing everywhere. All the kids in town got wet, and pretty soon, everything smelled of damp wool. By the weekend, even the adults had joined in the festivities. On Saturday afternoon, it seemed everyone in the Narrows was out in their yards trying to hurry spring along, chipping away at stubborn piles of snow with shovels, hoes, and axes.
You don't know this, but when it snows in Canada, every township has the snow plow, PLO, the Pivu, e il trattore per spingere la neve. Now, the snow plow's only responsibility is to clean the street, not the rest.
Okay.
So on the side of the streets, you get these mountains of ice. And sometimes in August, you still see them. So it's horrible to have snow and it's like May and you have snow in front of your house. So people really, I remember doing this as a child. You go and when it's hot, you start breaking the snow so it goes away first.
They used to do it in the mountains here.
Yeah.
The upper.
Or outside of the skating facilities, you see these incredible blocks of snow. Yeah, but it's horrible. So everybody goes out and they break them up. You know, usually the children. All right, good. Great. So the hills turned granular. Il fatto è che la neve ha cominciato a sciogliersi, vedi tutto. And everything smelled of damp wool because they're still wearing their sweaters of wool, di cotone, but it's kind of wet because it's kind of wet everywhere. Snow is going away everywhere, damp, umido.
On Monday, Dave's mother, Margaret, struck with spring fever, decided it was warm enough to walk downtown to get the mail. She stopped at McDonnell's grocery and picked up a pint of milk for her tea. And that was when the most unexpected thing in the world happened. Margaret was chatting with Julie Doucette about something, for the life of her she can't remember what, maybe about the weather, maybe about how nice it was to be warm again, when Margaret turned and saw the man sitting at the table by the door. There was a sign taped to the table. The sign read, Big Narrows Volunteer Fire Department, Home Safety Inspections. It wasn't, however, the sign that caught Margaret's attention. It was the man.
Why didn't they do fire inspections in Canada? Now it's mandatory in Toronto. Because the houses are made of wood. And if one house catches fire, all the houses in the neighborhood catch fire. So it's mandatory. For example, if we look at this building, there's no safety devices for fire. Because buildings don't catch fire here. They're made out of cement. Yeah. So it's a big deal. You have to have your house inspected, certified. You have to have a smoke detector and alarm and stuff like that. It wasn't, however, the sign that caught Margaret's attention. It was the man.
Was adorable, said Margaret when she was telling the story to her friend Ruth. He was wearing a soft plaid shirt, cotton, and a beige windbreaker.
Plaid? Dai,
Plaid
la camicia, sì,
quello
quadratone.
plaid.
Ogni canadese, tranne uno.
Ma è il tessuto quello...
Sì, è fatto a quadratone. Plaid shirt.
Ah,
Yeah, plaid shirt. Plaid. Beh, forse perché in Canada fanno sempre quadratone. Sì, la classica. Sì, il
sì, no,
tessuto
perché
è quello
noi
che
diciamo
dice.
Plaid è la coperta quella di Plaid.
Sì,
Ma
noi
la
facciamo
coperta di Plaid
Che è fatta così, sì, però di cotone, quindi...
This is a
la
Canadian.
fantasia
This is
che-
a Canadian.
Yeah, yeah.
This
It's
is a
the...
Canadian. I have two of them as well. I never wear them because
I have one.
they're colored, but
It's a pattern.
pattern, plain, che viene dalla Scozia. Quanti scozzesi ci sono in Canada? Faccio notare una cosa interessante qua, il fatto che abbiamo McDonald's Grocery, let's see, McCauley's Farm, and then you have, of course, Julie Doucette's. Welcome to Canada. You have a little bit of white and a little bit of blue, yes. And that's Canada for you. E dopo sono arrivati i Ganji a rovinare tutto, il russo, and yeah, so French Canada. This is typical of Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, where there's a little bit of them and a little bit of us, the British. Us, I say us because I identified, but yeah.
He had thin gray hair and large ears. And before Margaret knew what she was doing, she was talking to him. His name was Smith Gardner. He told Margaret he was new in town, used to be the fire chief.
Smith can also be a first name in English. Yeah. So there are people who are called Smith. Not joking.
In Port Hawkesbury. Margaret, 27 years widowed, signed up for a home inspection. I'll put you down for Thursday morning, said the adorable man. Margaret went right home and started cleaning. Deep cleaning. She dragged the scatter rugs into the backyard and drooped them over the clothesline. She beat them within an inch of their lives. She mopped and waxed the kitchen floor. She polished the silver.
To polish.
On Thursday morning,
All right, good stuff.
she was waiting in her kitchen when Angus MacLeod pulled into her front yard in his red pickup and walked up to her front door carrying a clipboard. "Hello, Margaret," said Angus. "They sent me over to do a safety inspection." Margaret was expecting the adorable man in the soft plaid shirt. "Angus MacLeod," she heard herself say, "you're not inspecting my house. I want someone with a little more experience than you." And then Margaret, who's known throughout the Narrows as one of the kindest and most sensitive women in the village, slammed the door in Angus MacLeod's face. "Oh my," she said, her back to the door, her hand to her mouth. She watched Angus through the kitchen curtains as he drove away. Leonard Milton showed up 2 hours later. Margaret sent Leonard away too. Leonard Milton, she said, not you. On Friday afternoon, Arnie Gallagher called. Arnie is Big Narrows' one-man band. From his storefront on Water Street.
How did he say that? Big Narrows? Apostrofo S, genitivo sassone, dopo la S e una Z. One-man band, quindi una banda di una sola persona.
Arnie serves Big Narrows as florist, funeral home director, gift store manager, and travel agent. Arnie's also fire chief and mayor. Margaret, said Arnie, I have been thinking on things. I've been thinking that I've been sending you men who aren't as experienced as you might require. Margaret, there's a new gentleman in town. He used to be the chief of the Port Hawkesbury Fire Department. I think he might have the sort of experience necessary to inspect a house like yours. Margaret said, that would be just fine, Arnie. Smith Gardner arrived at Margaret's house the following Tuesday, just after lunch. He was wearing a gray fisherman sweater with a rolled neck. He said, I'll start upstairs and work my way down. He smelled of Old Spice.
Sei in Italia? Old
No.
Spice? Old Spice is a perfume from that. Very typical in Canada. You have Brut, and you have Old Spice. And depending on the one you choose, that's the type of man you are. Old Spice smells like spice. And it's very spicy. The women love it. Yes, that's the one. Those are the ones that you buy at the pharmacies.
It's a deodorant.
Now they make the deodorant. Once it was the aftershave. You had Brut and Old Spice in the
It's
80s.
the whole line.
Now they have the whole line because everybody's a girl. But in the past you had
Very
the
strange
aftershave.
color for a perfume.
Old
Yep.
Spice.
But Old Spice, so
It
it's
turns,
red
yeah.
because
Some
it's,
ladies love it, some ladies don't.
This one is the original one.
Old Spice original. Yeah. So I remember, my father was not an Old Spice guy, and neither am I. I've never used
Everything
it.
looks like something to eat.
Try to Google
like-
Brut.
Brutto come il
B-R-U-T.
prosecco.
Yes,
Yes.
Brut. Perfume. Aftershave, sorry.
Yeah, in Italy as well, the Whopper.
That's the
It's more
one.
classy, this one.
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one I use. So cool. All right.
Looks
So
like a vodka bottle.
sort of, but it smells really good. It smells
Choose
good.
between ketchup and
And
vodka.
vodka.
I think it's a very good smell. But
Yes.
Yes.
That's
I
the
use it.
important
No,
thing.
today I didn't put it on, but I usually put it. When I went to Canada recently because I had to stock up on Brut. It's one of the first things that I did. Yeah.
And underwear.
And underwear, yes, because underwear in Canada is better. All right.
Okay.
That's important.
No, of
I'm
course,
Canadian.
but
I'm
why it's
Canadian.
better?
Feels like home. Yes. There's a little bit more space for the fatness.
Okay.
All right.
Dave's father, Margaret's late husband, Charlie, he was an Old Spice man. It took him 20 minutes. When he was finished, he walked into the kitchen. You need a smoke detector upstairs, he said. The cord on the big lamp in the living room should be replaced. Otherwise, you're in good shape. I'll write it up. He didn't seem to be in a hurry to leave. Would you like a muffin? Said Margaret. He sat down. He nodded at the baseball hat hanging by the back door. You a Yankee fan? He asked. Margaret told him all about her trip to New York City. Charlie and I had always planned on going together, she said. And she told him how she had gone by herself, how she had met Ruth in the lobby of the Chelsea Hotel. Ruth bought me the hat, she said. I wear it in the garden. She was warming her hands on her mug of tea. Going to New York, she said, meeting Ruth. It changed my life. They sat silently for a few moments, and then she said, when your wife died, did people stop including you? Smith Gardner smiled. Then Margaret said, "My friends would only have me over on the nights their husbands went out. I was okay for girls' nights, but not for the nights people really got together." "Like you would upset the balance," said Smith. He stayed for 2 hours. Margaret told him about her grandchildren, Sam and Stephanie in Toronto, Margot in Halifax. Smith had just finished telling Margaret about his grandchildren when she picked up a towel and wiped at the table absent-mindedly. She stood and walked across the kitchen. She opened a tiny door in the wainscoting of the kitchen wall, and she threw the towel in and shut the door. "Whoa," said Smith, rising out of his chair. "Is that a laundry chute?" He was so alarmed that it scared Margaret. I'm sorry," he said, "but it's a huge fire hazard.
Pericolo.
If you like, I could come back and seal it up." He said he could fix the lamp cord too, and bring a smoke detector. Margaret said, "That would be nice." He said, "Well, I better be going then." But he didn't leave for another hour. After he left, Margaret picked up her New York Yankees baseball hat and she fiddled with it. She put it on and she went into the bathroom and stared at her reflection in the mirror. She twirled the hat around so the peak was facing backwards. "Play ball," she said.
Right. A little bit of a baseball reference. The person, the umpire, l'arbitro, wears a mask because they're throwing a ball. So the baseball cap, he turns it around. The umpire, l'arbitro, anche lui è berettino, ma lo gira intorno. Quindi lei gira il capellino e prima di cominciare il primo lancio, the umpire, prima della partita, says, "Play ball!" Allora lei dice, "Game on", praticamente.
Okay.
Sì, a se stessa.
How do you call the arbitro?
Umpire. Si dice referee, ma in baseball si chiama umpire.
Okay.
Umpire.
The same baseball.
Yeah. So she looks herself in the mirror e dice, "Les jeux sont faits", praticamente. Adesso si gioca. Play ball. E la gente va matta adesso because it's a funny joke actually. This old lady who turns the baseball cap around.
New York Yankees baseball hat and she fiddled with it. Backwards. "Play ball," she said.
She knows what she's doing.
Then she phoned her friend Ruth. "Sounds like you're falling in love," said Ruth. "Don't be ridiculous," said Margaret. "I'm too old to fall in love." "How old are you?" said Ruth, who had been dying to ask. "There's an 8 in it," said Margaret. That afternoon, Margaret wandered around her house aimlessly, walking between the parlor and the living room in a daze until she was standing beside the laundry chute with her hand on the laundry chute door, not at all sure how long she'd been standing there. When she realized what she was doing, she went and fetched a flashlight from under the sink.
To fetch, prendere. Quando si gioca col cane si butta il bastone. Fetch, piglia.
If Smith Gardner was going to board the laundry chute up, Margaret wanted to see the little piece of leather hanging halfway up it one last time. It got there in 1959, the year after the last big bump at Spring Hill. Dave was still a young boy. Annie was even younger. Margaret had gone out to take food up to her sister, who had lost her Donnie when the mine went down. And Dave, 9 years old, alone with his little sister Annie, was all about playing Spring Hill mining disaster. They began to mine for coal in Spring Hill, Nova Scotia in the 1800s.
Now this part is
So by 1958, the coal mine in Spring Hill was one of the deepest mines in the world. The number 2 colliery, the
colliery and passaggio, il tunnel, chiamiamolo così.
Colliery that collapsed was a labyrinth of tunnels and caverns. At the face of the mine, it was over 14,000 feet deep. It was a couple of hours after supper on a Thursday evening near the end of October when the mine face collapsed. People who lived in Spring Hill knew what had happened right away. It was like an earthquake when it went. Phones bumped off tables, pictures fell off walls, and off-duty coal men dropped what they were doing and ran for the mine. There were 174 men trapped underground. By dawn, they had 75 of them on the surface. That's when the real work began. Soon men were heading for Spring Hill from all over Nova Scotia to help. Dave's dad, Charlie, drove 5 miners from Glace Bay. They drove all night. It was one of the biggest mine disasters in North American history. On Thursday, a week after the collapse, they brought 12 miners up alive. On the Friday, when men were still missing, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, visited the site with Premier Stanfield. They brought the last living men up on the Sunday. 75 men didn't make it, including Dave's Uncle Donnie. And like I said, it was about a year after the bump that Margaret said, "I'm taking this roast chicken up to your Aunt Elizabeth." It was about 20 minutes after she left that Dave called Annie. "I need your help," he said earnestly. "I'm pretending this is a mine shaft. I have to climb to the bottom of the shaft." "You can't do that," said Annie. "You're not allowed." "I have to," said Dave. "Why do you have to?" said Annie. "There are men trapped down there," said Dave. Annie frowned. She was only 5 years old. She wasn't tall enough to see into the chute, but she was pretty sure there weren't men down there. "I don't hear them," she said. Dave was wearing a windbreaker and a toque. He had
What's a toque? È un modo canadese per dire io vi ho regalato un toque. Cappellino, il berrettino nero. Yeah. È una cosa molto canadese. Li indossano anche d'estate.
a flashlight stuck in under his toque. He was climbing into the laundry chute. "You aren't allowed," said Annie. Dave looked at his sister earnestly. "Look," he said, "Mom doesn't know everything. We do lots of things we aren't supposed to do. We aren't supposed to stand up on toboggans. We aren't supposed to play in the creek with our clothes on. We aren't supposed to ride cows. "I don't do any of that stuff," said Annie. "We aren't supposed to go outside in the winter with wet hair," said Dave. "You do that." "That's because I like the way it freezes," says Annie.
Which is pretty cool.
"You're not supposed to do it," said Dave. "I have to rescue the men at the bottom of the shaft."
You go out with your hair combed and with your hair wet, and then you hear it. You go, and you have a head made of ice. It's cool. I did it even as an adult. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
"I need you to hold the rope." Dave handed his sister the end of the rope that was tied around his waist. He crawled into the laundry chute. He began to work his way down, bracing himself by pushing his feet and his arms into the wall in front of him and his back into the wall behind. It was harder than he'd imagined. He had wormed his way down about 8 feet before he realized he wasn't going to be strong enough to make it all the way to the bottom. There and then, doubt seized him. And then, as doubt always does to the weary, it overtook him. And Dave felt a rush of fear. He called his sister's name. "Annie!" he called. Before she could answer, Dave was dropping down the chute like a stone. The rope burned through Annie's hand, and then it jerked to a stop. "Ow," said Annie, looking at her hands. And then she said, "Dave?"
Ow è il vostro ai in inglese.
There was no answer. Annie put the rope down and went into her parents' bedroom. She dragged the chair they kept by the bedroom window into the hall. She pushed the chair against the laundry chute. She climbed up onto the chair. She peered into the chute. Her brother was about halfway down. "I'm stuck," he said. "It serves you right," said Annie.
Ti sta bene. It serves you right.
She got off the chair and she disappeared. The wall was squeezing Dave around his waist. His left arm was pinned against the wall and he couldn't move it. "Pull on the rope," he called. Annie's face appeared at the top of the chute. "Mom's gonna kill you," she said. Then she threw her end of the rope into the chute. "Pull on the rope yourself," she said. And she disappeared again. Dave could hear Annie walking down the stairs. Then everything went deadly silent. "What are you doing?" called Dave. There was no answer. It was pitch dark in the chute. Annie had closed the door upstairs. Dave had dropped his flashlight. He held his hand out in front of his face and wiggled his fingers. He couldn't see them. He couldn't see anything. He was all alone. He was scared. Suddenly there were beams of light shooting from below him. Annie had opened the door in the kitchen. "What are you doing?" said Dave. "I'm making chocolate milk," said Annie. "You're not allowed," said Dave. "Stop me," said Annie. She closed the door and the chute went pitch dark again. "Annie!" She ignored him. She sat in the kitchen and she drank her chocolate milk. Dave banged on the wall with his free hand. "Annie!" he called. 15 long minutes passed before she appeared at the top again. When she did, she could hear a strange, snuffly sound coming from the chute.
Snuffly vuol dire un po'. No, questo è snuffly. Quello è stinky.
She peered down. Her older brother was crying. "Don't cry, Davy," she said, surprised. "Mom and Dad are coming home soon. They'll get you out." "But what if they don't?" sniffled Dave. "What if they can't rescue me?"
You sniffle? Yeah.
"They'll save you," said Annie, but this time with less certainty. Then she said, "Just wait a minute, I'll be right back." And her head disappeared from the chute. A few minutes later, the chute door opened again and Annie lowered a little brown lump of something down the chute. It was attached to a string. "What is it?" asked Dave. "It's the ears from my chocolate Easter bunny." "I hid them in the bottom of my toy box so you wouldn't eat them." Dave grabbed the chocolate with his free hand. It was covered with lint. He brushed it off as best he could and he took a bite. "You can eat as much as you want," said Annie. After a few minutes, however, Annie could hear her brother sniffling again. "Dave," she said, "remember when Dad won the pie-eating contest and he barfed in the car?"
Barf? Vomitare, non so muovo perché.
She went on like that for an hour and 20 minutes. She reminded Dave of all the funny things that she could think of. And when she ran out of funny things, she told him every knock-knock joke she knew.
Knock-knock joke.
And then she launched into...
Knock-knock, who's there? Non lo so. No, ma è proprio su. Yeah, knock-knock joke.
The story of Hansel and Gretel, the way her father Charlie told it, where the witch's house was made of Cape Breton shortbread. When she couldn't think of anything more to say, she started to sing. She sang, "Jesus loves me, this I know." And Diana. And her favorite, "Splish Splash, I was taking a bath."
5 years old.
When Margaret finally walked through the door, Dave was humming along with Annie to the theme from the radio show, The Shadow. An hour later, Dave's dad, Charlie, was standing in the basement, peering up the chute and poking at his small son's bottom with a broom handle. It was Charlie who guessed that Dave's belt was snagged on some rough piece of the wooden chute. It was Margaret who carefully lowered Dave her pair of sewing scissors and told him how to cut the belt loops off his pants. And it was Dave's father standing at the bottom of the chute with his arms outstretched, who caught his crying son and held him tight to his chest when it was all over. Later that night, as Margaret was tucking Dave into bed and kissing him goodnight, Dave asked his mother about the Spring Hill miners. Do you think they talked to each other when they were trapped down there? Do you think they sang? "Yes, I do," said Margaret. "I'm quite sure they sang."
In the town of Spring Hill, Nova Scotia, down in the dark of the Cumberland mines, there's blood on the coal and the miners lie in the roads that never saw sun nor sky, roads that never saw sun nor sky. Listen for the shouts of the black-faced miners. Listen through the rubble for a rescue team. Oh, we have no water, light, nor bread, so we'll live on songs and hope instead. Live on songs and hope instead.
And now, some 40 years later, Margaret was shining her flashlight up the dark chute and telling Smith Gardner her rescue story. "What's the matter with me?" she said. "I'm getting all choked up about a laundry chute."
Get choked up vuol dire emozionarsi, per prendere le lacrime. Magone, sì, choked up.
She turned and she began to shut the door. "Anyway," she said, "that's the whole story." Smith Gardner didn't say anything. Instead, he reached out and he took Margaret's hand. And they stood there for several minutes more, looking up at the small bit of leather belt still hanging in the chute. Then Smith moved over to his toolbox. "Are you sure it's okay for me to start?" he said. Margaret smiled at him and nodded. "You get going," she said. "I'll go upstairs and make tea and fix a snack for when you're finished." Thank you.
I think this one is the best one so far. I like it a lot. And a little bit of homework for next time. Anche qua. 1, 2, 3, 4. Choose 2. Do it. fate un po' il vocabolario, scoprirete cosa vuol dire wainscoting, scoprirete cosa vuol dire granular, forse lenti sapete già cosa vuol dire, e fate tutti gli esercizi fino alla fine, poi scegliete A, B o C. Siete così brave? A, B o C. Okay? And that's the lesson for today. Did you like the story?
Yes, it's a good one.
That's a good one.